If you've been injured in a pedestrian accident or somebody you love's been in a pedestrian accident, I got some information that you need to know, so stay tuned. Hi, I'm Michael Coker. I'm a local personal injury lawyer, and one of the most unique type of cases that I do are pedestrian accident cases. And so they're very different from routine car accident cases. So the last thing you want to do is call one of the TV lawyers who is a car accident lawyer who maybe doesn't do these type of pedestrian accident cases. You want a specialist who understands these type of cases. And so I'm going to give you 4 or 5 tips that you need to know if you have a pedestrian case to make sure that you don't ruin your case before it even starts. First off, pedestrian cases are extremely difficult to win, and it's because the insurance company loves to try to blame the pedestrian. It's very important if the pedestrian was in the crosswalk, had the walk symbol, they still might try to blame you for the accident by saying you darted out or that you didn't actually have the walk symbol when you tried to cross. And so insurance companies know and understand that pedestrian accident cases are much more serious. Generally, the injuries are much worse. And so they're much more likely to try to skirt responsibility than, say, if it was like a routine rear-end collision case. And so collecting evidence is really important because a lot of times if you're the pedestrian and you were the one that was involved, you might be hurt too bad to stand up and take photographs or talk to the police about your side of the story. And so it's very important that you gather information after the fact to make sure that your case is successful. One of the things that I usually recommend is either you or your attorney go back to the scene after the accident. Take a video of what it looks like of pushing the button, how much time elapses, and then when that walk symbol comes on. Because you never know when either your city or the state or even the county DOT will come in and maybe change that signal or change the timing. And so it's very important for you to understand and have a record of what does that look like? What does the light sequencing look like? What does the walk sequencing look like? And also when you're there, take some photographs. Take some photographs of maybe where you were standing, where you were hit. So it's very clear where the incident happened. The second thing you need to know if you're involved in a pedestrian accident is that you typically always want to get a police report. Sometimes maybe you're hit and you're lying there and someone comes out and says, no, don't call the police. We'll take care of this. Always get a police report because you never know when that person's going to change their story later. And so you want their story to be locked in a police report so that it's completely clear what you need to know and what was in there so that if you have to prove it later at court or to an insurance company, it's completely undisputed. Now, the third thing you need to know is there's different types of pedestrian cases. If it's a crosswalk case, it's one type of case. If there's no crosswalk and maybe it's a country road and someone's trying to get to the other side, it's a different type of case and a different legal standard sometimes. And then also, if it's a child, that is a different standard as well. And so, number 3, you need to know that different facts change the case completely. For example, if you have a child that's, playing basketball, and they take a shot and then the ball rolls out the road and they chase after it, right? Obviously, that insurance company could try to argue, well, it's not our fault. The child darted out in the roadway. But a good driver would know if they were pulling down the roadway and they saw someone, a small child dribbling a basketball and taking a shot, a reasonable driver would see that, recognize that, and then would take appropriate action. They would slow down. They would take their time. They would really watch the child to make sure the child didn't dart out. So just because an insurance company tells you that, oh, well, the child darted out into the roadway, that doesn't mean you don't have a case. Because a reasonable driver will drive safely, especially in a residential neighborhood when they know children might be playing. So don't listen to the insurance company the first time when they say, oh, the child darted out, we're not going to take any responsibility. Have a lawyer take a look at that and determine what a reasonable driver would have done in those circumstances. The fourth thing is you need to get checked out medically. The reality is it's always better to be safe than sorry. You never want a situation where you're hit, you're injured, maybe you don't get checked out, and then your injuries either get worse later, or the insurance company ends up saying, oh, you waited too long to go to the doctor. And so it's always best to get checked out to make sure that you're safe, because we all know that a car, which is made of metal, against the soft tissues of the human body, it's not a fair fight. And so you need to make sure that you don't have any broken bones, that there's no issues. And so I always tell people, get checked out, go to the doctor, make sure that you're safe. The last item I would tell you is talk to a lawyer who does these type of cases. A good pedestrian accident lawyer is not going to charge you any money up front. It's going to be a free consultation, and they're going to take a percentage of the settlement if you win. As I told you, these type of cases are not always easy cases. They love to try to blame the victim and say, hey, this is the victim's fault. They weren't paying attention. They didn't have the crosswalk sign, or they were a small child that darted out into the roadway. And so don't think that you can handle this case on your own. Be very, very concerned if the insurance company immediately starts offering you a quick settlement. I think you should ask yourself, if you're involved in a pedestrian accident and then the insurance company offers you a settlement that's, hey, we'll pay you this amount, you just need to accept it by Tuesday. Well, ask yourself, why are they offering you that settlement, and why do they want you to settle it so quickly? It's because they know that if you speak to a lawyer, the value of the case goes up, and you might be hurt worse than you think, and so they would rather lock you in now at a low settlement than allow you to get the medical care you need to make sure that you're protected. And so it doesn't cost anything. You can call my law firm. You can call another law firm who handles pedestrian accident cases, but be sure that you get an opinion. It's free, and it's going to be something that you're going to be glad that you did. And I will tell you this, is sometimes I have pedestrian accident cases where somebody calls me and I tell them, unfortunately, they have no case. Or maybe they don't even need a lawyer, and I say, hey, here's some free advice. You do these 2 or 3 things and you can handle it on your own. But I will tell you many times, I have pedestrian accident cases where an insurance representative called or showed up at the house with a check ready to write it. And I have told those clients, be careful, watch out. I'm not telling you what to do. It's your case. But at the end of the day, they don't have your best interests at heart. And they've ended up signing with me. And a lot of times, or most times, they end up getting substantially more than what they would have got had they taken that first offer. And so that's definitely something to watch out for in pedestrian accidents. But there's a few areas that you need to be aware that pedestrian accidents happen the most. The first is in neighborhoods. We talked a little bit about those, particularly with children riding a bike, playing basketball. Neighborhoods can be very dangerous. So I have 3 children. I tell them to not play in the road, to be safe, just play on our driveway. You need to tell that to your children too, to be careful, because neighborhoods are one of the number 1 places that pedestrian accidents happen. The second is in city centers. City centers have a lot of people walking in crosswalks, pedestrians walking to dinner, walking to school. And unfortunately, we still live in a world where people are on their phone while they're driving. And so sometimes they're not paying attention. Sometimes they're just even looking at traffic. Maybe they're looking over their shoulder, trying to see traffic come by, and they're not seeing the pedestrian. And so these are all things that can lead to pedestrian accidents. So we talked about neighborhoods. We talked about city centers. Be very careful when you're driving, especially in a high pedestrian area. But that is another thing. If you're injured in a city, the driver should know this is a city. There's a lot of people walking around, and they need to be extra careful. So neighborhoods, city centers, and then the last place that we see a lot of pedestrian accidents is in parking lots. So if you're at the grocery store, if you are maybe walking, always be 100% sure that the car, especially the car that's backing out of the parking space, sees you before you try to cross behind the car. Because these are some of the most difficult cases to win. Because they love to say, the driver, I didn't see you, and oh, by the way, you should have seen my red lights. indicating I was backing up, and you still cross behind the car. So always be aware, make eye contact with the driver, and make sure that they see you. And if you still get hit or you're involved in a pedestrian accident in a parking lot, again, these are some of the most difficult cases. You definitely need to call a lawyer, make sure you're protected, call the police, even though it's private property, they usually will still do a report, and make sure that your claim for your injuries is protected. And so that's some really important information about pedestrian accidents that you really need to know and understand. If you have any other questions, I'd be more than happy to give you some free advice over the phone or talk to you more in detail about your specific case for a free consultation. So if you want to talk to me about your pedestrian accident case, give me a call. I'm here in Georgia. I'm always willing to help out anyone that I can. And so this is my podcast, Georgia Legal Talks, and this has been the one about pedestrian accidents. If you like to get these legal updates, like and subscribe, and we'll continue to provide more and more information about Georgia law. But until next time, thanks for listening.